Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Farah Annisa, and today I would like to do a presentation about my thesis proposal. So the title of my research is Analyzing the Effectiveness of Translation Techniques Used by English Department Students in Translating a Report Text. And then we'll move on to the next slide. There is the contents of this presentation. The first one is introduction, and then the second one is literature review, and the third is research method. We are entering the first chapter, introduction. There is a background of the research, and the question is why using translation. The importance of translation is obviously shown in daily life because translation does not only enable us to transfer one language into another language, but it also helps us to understand the characteristic, system language, and the culture of another language. Then, why using report text? Report text can be used as an informative text which announces and describes something phenomenon factually, and the objects can be proved scientifically to the audiences or to the readers based on the scientific language. And now we are on to the formulation of the problems and objective of the research. The first formula is what are the techniques of translation that the student use in translating report text. And then the second is which one of the translation techniques that is the most effective one based on its readability. And to answer this question, here is my objectives of the research. The first is to find out the student's technique used to refer the procedures in translating report text. And then the second is to discover which translation techniques that is the most effective one based on its readability. Next is significance of the research. One, for students, this research is considering benefit for them to know how to translate their report text well by following some techniques that refer to procedures according to some experts, namely Vinay. And second, for teachers, it can make this research as an orientation in addition to teach the students more effective in translating report text in the classroom. Third, for researcher, this research hopes can be made as an additional reference in doing the next research that has relation in translating report text. And now we are on the limitation of the research. So this research will focus on investigating the translation technique that used by the students in translating a report text from English to Indonesia, and the effectiveness of each translating techniques that were being used measured by the readability. And then we have operational definition times. In order to avoid the misunderstanding in this research, the researchers defines the key terms as follow. First, translation is defined as producing equivalent in meaning from English source text into Indonesian. And second, translation technique is techniques used by student translators in transferring meaning from English into Indonesian. And third, report text is a type of text that presents general information about people, place, animals, or a thing and translated into Indonesian. Now we are entering the second chapter, literature review. So on the first slide, we have the definition of translation. Basic definition of translation is the communication of meaning from one language to the source to another language or the target language. According to Center for Health Literacy 2010, translation is the conversion of written text from one language into another one so that the new translated text reflects the content of the original text. and corresponding cultural perceptions and custom of the target audience. And then we have the types of translation according to Larson. Translation is classified into two main types, namely form-based and meaning-based translation. Form-based translation attempts to follow the form of source language and is known as literal translation, while meaning-based translation makes every effort to communicate the meaning of the SL text source language in the natural forms of the receptor language. The translation process. There are 4 stages in the translation process. The translation stages are analysis, transfer, restructuring, and evaluation. And then translation technique. According to Molina and Alpier, 2002, there are 18 translation techniques to transfer source text into the target text. They are adaptation, amplification, borrowing, calcul, composition, description, discursive creation, established equivalent, generalization, linguistic amplification, linguistic compression, literal translation, modulation, particularization, reduction, substitution, transportation, and variation. Now we are talking about the report text. So first is definition of the report text. Sunarti 2015 states report text or informational report is a text which is used to classify, describe, or to present information about a subject. According to Fridaus and Sunario, report text is a kind of text which is describe the way things are with the environment. And then we have the structure of report text. Report text also has its own characteristic. It's like in the structure of a report text. According to Sunarti, the structure of the text is the first general opening statement, and then series of paragraphs about the subject, and the last is concluding paragraph. This can be optional on the report text. And then there is a language features of report text. According to Sunarti, that states that the language features of report text are first, the use of technical language related to the subject, the use of generalized terms, and the use of the timeless present tense. And now talking about the previous study, so researchers have studied some research that have conducted by other researchers in the past. The first one is analysis of translation techniques in Roads Divergent by Aulia Rahmawati. And then the second is analysis of translation technique in the webtoon Smile Brush by Waru, by Salsabila H. Rosida. 3. Strategies and equivalence of wordplay translation of Roald Dahl's children's books by Musiana Nurul Aisyah. And the last is a comparison of translation techniques applied by translation learners and professional translators to get knowledge of a translation text by Ami Christiana. We are on the last of part on this presentation, so here we are on the chapter 3, research method. So about the research designs on this research is the researcher will use qualitative research as the design, because the researcher is going to classify and analyze the translation techniques applied by English department students. And then the researchers describe and interprets the translation techniques that affect the aspect of readability. Then data and source of the research. The data source is English version and the Indonesian translation of a report text titled Tsunami, taken from Scaffolding Grade 9. The data includes words, phrases, and sentences of English in Indonesian essays of tsunami. Then about the data collection. In collecting the data, the researchers will use note-taking technique. The researchers takes the note, the translation technique used by professional translators and translation learners in collecting the data. Instruments of the research. The researcher will use the readability instruments to get the readability data. There are three criteria of readability based on Nababan Nuraini and Sumadiono 2012 that are adapted in this research. So first is the good readability, medium readability, and poor readability. And then the last but not least, data analysis. The researcher will analyze the data by using content analysis techniques to find out the translation techniques that being used. Krippendorff 2004 says that content analysis is analyzing by using classification and tabulation to find out about the meaning. Reference that I used in arranging this presentation. So there are three journals that I got information from to make this presentation. And that's all about my presentation. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.